We'll just wing it as we go, right?
Yeah, just wing it, man.
And I'll introduce myself there. Can I see this? I mean, I guess it's factual, right? Ooh.
I'll start, okay?
Yes.
Whoa.
Okay. Yes, you start.
Okay. Hey guys, how's it going? This video is about med school in Singapore versus in Sydney. Today I have my friend Nicholas. Nick, say
Hello.
hi.
Hello.
Oh, not too close.
Hello.
Yeah, he's in Sydney right now. He's come over for a holiday.
Hello.
Welcome to Sydney, dude.
Alright, let's get it started. Welcome to the crib. We got a table here, some chairs, and some stunning views out there. And of course, we got an incredible host over here.
I'm so excited that you're here, dude. We've had a few days of like going out and having fun. How were the past few days, Nick?
Oh, it was quite nice. A lot of interesting experiences going up the Blue Mountain, but not to the touristy areas, you know. We're putting ourselves through the bushes to appreciate the good views. And the strong winds of Sydney. Ooh. Yeah, we went to the fish market. The birds were flying in reverse because the winds were so strong. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was good. The purpose of this video is to inform any Singaporeans who are thinking about whether they'd like to study locally in Singapore or overseas, and more particularly in Australia. And whatever we say here isn't like official, it's more of just like our experiences as students. Take everything with a pinch of salt, and yeah, hopefully this conversation is helpful to you guys.
Yeah.
If it is, like, subscribe, and if you have any questions, leave a comment. I guess we'll just jump into it.
So, I'm Nicholas, or Nick. I met Brandon about 10 years ago in secondary school.
Yeah,
Secondary school. After junior college, I went on to study in NTU, Lee Kong Chian School of Medicine in Singapore. And after 5 long years, now I'm starting work as a postgrad year 1 doctor, currently doing my surgical rotation. Yeah.
So for those who are new to this channel, my name is Brendan. I'm a year 5 medical student from the University of New South Wales. And right now I'm in my clinical years of medical school.
Okay, so medical school in Singapore is 5 years and generally is split into 2 years of pre-clinical years and 3 years of clinical years, and it all culminates in final year 5 MBBS examinations. And the first 2 years, pre-clinical years, that's where we learn about microbiology all the way down to basic sciences like your cells and your ribosomes and whatnot, and we go on to learn a bit more about the body, what's normal like physiology and what's abnormal like pathology, and then a little bit about anatomy as well to help tie everything together. Here and there'll be bits and pieces of clinical knowledge and clinical application questions, but the focus of it is really to get the basic of the knowledge there lah. Yeah. In my school, for the first 2 years, generally we split it into blocks of about 6 to 8 weeks, with each block focusing on a different system. So the first block might be cardiovascular system, and we move on quickly to respiratory, the GI, and whatever. So that's the main focus in the first 2 years. Here and there, in my school, we sprinkle a bit of a longitudinal learning, whereby we have some patient interaction with simulated patients, learning how to take a history, learning how to do physical examinations, or even simple skills like cannulation, so that when we go into our clinical years, we're a bit more prepared for the clinical years.
So that's in the first 2 years?
Yeah, in the first 2 years. So it's quite heavy loaded. Yeah, so clinical years are from year 3 to year 5, and I think generally across the world, clinical year medical school students are expected to do pretty much the same thing. It's more of a learning experience to be there, to absorb from the clinicians, to learn from the patients, to practice talking to patients, examining patients, and picking up clinical signs.
So I guess about UNSW's medical program, instead of 5 years, our medical program is 6 years. We have 2 full years of preclinical. Our third year is like half classroom, half in the hospital. So half classroom, half clinical. And then our 4th year is a research year, a mandatory research year. And this is where students can undergo an honors program. And then finally, we have 2 final clinical years. And at the end of the 6 years, we would take our final exam to get our MD. I would say mostly our medical program is quite similar to NTU's, whereby the first 2 preclinical years are just like about learning anatomy, physiology, pathology, all the good stuff, all the basic clinical science. The only main difference is that we have our 4th year, which is a mandatory research year, which you guys don't have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that's why it makes our program 6 years rather than 5. And then our clinical years are quite similar to yours in the sense that we go to hospital, try to get as much clinical experience as possible, learning in the hospital, and then hopefully picking up stuff to become a good doctor. Yeah.
But do you feel like your extra year of research helps?
I guess in the moment I didn't really see the benefit because I wasn't very interested in research. But I guess the deeper I go into my medical journey, the more I realize how important research can be in your career. And even just like if you're not interested in research, it's a really good experience to like pick up research skills and experience something different apart from like just being a clinician, I guess. Yeah. So in hindsight, I really appreciate the research year.
I think that having a whole year to do research is quite good because I'm not saying that I would take a whole year to do it, but having that opportunity to just let go of like studies for 1 year and focus on the research, which back at home we don't have this chance. We tend to do research on top of what we're already doing day to day, and we try and weave it into our busy schedule already. So the amount of effort and amount of time that you can actually put in and commit to research is much less, I would say, compared to what you can do here. For me, studying locally was a simple decision because I had the opportunity to study locally, and I'm lucky enough for that. And I also didn't crave an overseas opportunity. At the point of my life, I didn't think about traveling at all for school. I wanted to stay with my family at home. And I wasn't desiring to travel and explore the world and meet new friends and explore new experiences. Now, I do kind of wish that I did take the opportunity to travel around and see the world a bit more. But no regrets. And that's mainly why I stayed at home, because I had the opportunity to do so. Yeah.
I think the main reason why I chose to study overseas was, being like very brutally honest, I didn't get an offer for medical school in Singapore, so that wasn't really an option for me. And for myself, I sort of knew I wanted to be a doctor. So then I started looking at overseas options. I think if I had gotten an offer from Singapore, I probably would have just stayed, just based on the finances and
convenience.
Convenience, being home with family. That being said, same thing, no regrets. We'll get into this later, but studying overseas presents a lot of different opportunities to you. So actually we'll get into that.
No, but why Australia amongst the different countries available?
That's true. For me, it was because I guess the main reason was one, Australia is pretty nearby Singapore as compared to places like the US or the UK. When I got my offer for UNSW, it was actually one of the less expensive options, and UNSW has quite a reputable medical school, so yeah.
I think what's important for the viewers to know also is the SMC list of approved schools, right?
Oh yeah, go Google that. It's basically a list of medical schools that are approved by the Singapore Medical Council, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, essentially. So make sure you check before you apply.
Do I start?
Yeah, you start.
Okay, so
Start with the cheaper one.
down to the nitty gritty and the finances. Our school fees are about 30 plus Singapore $1,000 a year. So it depends according to the year you matriculate. So my year, I think it was about 35,000 Singapore dollars a year, and you pay it every semester. So 17 plus, and it stays consistent throughout all 5 years. So depending on the year that you matriculate. At the end of it, we start working in the government sector, and we are bonded for about 5 to 6 years post-graduation. And this bond comes because the $35,000 that we're paying for school fees is actually a subsidized rate already. I think without the subsidy, it's much higher. It can be almost up to 100K a year.
And just to confirm, this opportunity is only given to residents and PRs, or is it given to anyone who's doing med school in Singapore?
To my knowledge, is Singapore citizens and PRs, permanent residents.
We'll have to do more research on that one. Okay, then I'll talk about mine. The cost of medical school in Australia as an international student is much higher than studying locally in Singapore. So my school fees for the whole 6 years come up to about $500,000, and that is only for course fees.
Oh.
So keep in mind that when you come over here, you'd have to pay for rent, you'd have to pay for food, transport, all the good stuff. So yeah, in the end, it adds up to quite a bit. Yeah, but that being said, the Ministry of Health back in Singapore does offer sort of like a scholarship to Singaporean medical students studying overseas. Hey guys, so just jumping in here for a brief explanation on the grant. So this grant is offered by the Ministry of Health Holdings in Singapore, and essentially it's to encourage Singaporean medical students who are studying overseas to come back to Singapore to work. This grant is offered midway through your medical course. So for example, because my course is 6 years, it is offered to all Singaporean medical students in their 3rd year of medical school. And this grant offers to cover 60% of your remaining school fees, up to $50,000 a year. Yeah, so if you get this in the 3rd year of medical school, you can claim up to $150,000 for the remaining 3 years of medical school. And if you decide to take on this grant, you will be bonded to the Singapore public healthcare system for 3 to 4 years, depending on when you start the grant. So yeah, I guess bottom line is med school overseas is way more expensive. How would you describe your lifestyle back in Singapore as a medical student?
I would say the lifestyle as a medical student in Singapore is really very dependent on what kind of person you are. So of course in all schools there's a whole spectrum of people. There are those who are there because they want to study and study and study only. And there are also going to be at the other end of the spectrum, those who only want to play and play and play and have as much fun as they can. I don't think any end of the spectrum is wrong, but I think somewhere in the middle is nice to be. So in general, I would say, as Singaporeans would know it, we are very competitive and very academic people.
That's a very cultural thing.
Yeah, it's a very cultural thing, and everyone's just striving to be doing better and doing better. Okay, I think it was definitely quite stressful, but also because I put myself in stressful situations, because that is something that I particularly enjoy and I think I can do well in. So I always try and challenge myself. So in school, like academically, I would always be trying to read up and understand things before it needs to be known. So like maybe before my surgical rotation, I'll try and read up on all my surgical stuff before the rotation itself, so that when we're in the rotation, I know my things, I can help my colleagues who may be struggling, or I can understand and ask questions to the tutors who are teaching us. And on top of just solely the academic responsibilities, I also try to pick up some medical society stuff. I try and contribute to some interest groups here and there. I also try to dabble a little bit in rugby in uni.
Did you ever feel worn out or burnt out during your medical school?
Yes, because there were days where, there were weeks whereby I woke up at maybe 6 in the morning, showered, did a bit of Anki, go to school, and I was in the hospital maybe until 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. and then I will go off to training, have dinner on the grounds beside the field, some microwavables from 7-Eleven, train, and at maybe 9:30, go on a 45-minute drive home, reach home at 10:15, and realize that actually I haven't studied yet. I've barely eaten anything the same day, and I'm very thankful that my partner sometimes will deliver food to my place. So I get a quick meal, I shower, and I go to bed. And it felt a bit tiring because there was no time for my own life.
Yeah, doing that over and over again for a long period of time will be very wearing out.
Yeah, but eventually I realized that, things like playing rugby or going for this meeting or that meeting for whatever committee, these are all part of the life that I want to live. So on hindsight, it was very enjoyable because I got to play so much rugby in uni. Things that something that I can't do now because I don't have the time. Yeah, so I think I really enjoyed the uni life. I would say I was stressed, but it was very manageable. And some of my friends who, their flavor wasn't, they didn't want a more stressful uni life. They wanted something a bit more casual and more carefree. They managed to get that kind of a life because they just tailored their schedule according to what they wanted.
So, the whole burnt out medical student in Singapore kind of trope is just a myth.
I don't think it's the most common. Of course, this comes from a very privileged position, whereby I don't have many additional responsibilities outside of school and what I choose to partake in. But from what I see, a lot of my friends are actually doing quite okay and enjoy school.
So the camera ran out of battery around here, so I'll give my thoughts on UNSW's lifestyle here. The lifestyle of a medical student in UNSW is very similar to what Nick was describing back in NTU, where it's very self-directed and you get to choose what you want to prioritize. So there are students who really put emphasis on their studies, but there are also other students who choose to spend their time doing other things, for example, traveling and making YouTube videos. I think the main difference, which is really obvious, is that as a Singaporean living here in Sydney, you're living abroad, you're living in a different city, and without the support of family here, there are a lot more responsibilities that international students here have to think about, such as where you're living and making sure you have meals ready. And these are just little things that, for me, I don't really have to think about when I'm back home in Singapore living with my family. On the other hand, living abroad also presents a completely different opportunity. You're living in a new city and you have the opportunity to travel and explore a completely new country. So for myself, I really do like to explore Sydney and the surrounding areas. I've also tried to travel to other states. And I believe that this really gave me a very unique university experience. So I guess to summarize this lifestyle section, whether you're doing med school in NTU or in UNSW, med school is what you make of it.
What I really liked and what I really took away from medical school in Singapore is this familial culture. Familial in the sense that everyone's in this together, and we know that we're in this together and we're just trying to get through this together. So there's a lot of inter-batch teaching, intra-batch teaching.
Yeah, I think that's very similar to here as well, the whole culture of teaching your juniors, helping each other out, setting up tutorials and stuff for exams. It's like that saying, right? What's it? Watch one, do one, teach one. What is it? Is it
see one, do one, teach one?
Yeah, see one, do one, teach one. It's I think it's a very, at least for here in UNSW, and it seems back home in Singapore, that's sort of how things go in medical school. Yeah. As for cultural differences, back in Singapore, there's definitely that sort of competitive Asian culture, I guess, where things feel a little bit more competitive between your peers in terms of academics and career opportunities. This is something I've definitely noticed growing up in Singapore as well, and I think in a high-stress environment like med school, this competitiveness just adds on to that stress. On the other hand, here in Sydney, I feel like the culture isn't as competitive, and there's definitely more of an emphasis in terms of work-life balance. Nick was also saying that because residency spots are really limited in Singapore, people feel the need to one-up each other by building their portfolio, and this will definitely add on extra stress as well.
What does life after graduation look like?
Yeah, and this doesn't have to be like for the general medical school population in Singapore. It can just be like your experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after graduation, we have 1 year of housemanship, which is not called housemanship anymore. It's called being a PGY1, postgrad year 1 doctor. And this is basically like your provisional period where you're doing the work of a doctor, you're being a house officer, but you have to clear this year, and every month you're being evaluated.
Do you know if you have any opportunities to work as a doctor overseas after studying in medical school?
I do not know.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
As an international graduate from UNSW, I can choose to live in Australia and continue working here, and that would mean that I would have to get a visa and eventually a PR-ship to continue working here. Or we also have the option of going back to Singapore to work. If you guys are thinking of like going to Australia to study, you can either work there, you can either continue working there, or you can go back to Singapore. Okay, wait, I have this question for you. Now working as a doctor in Singapore and seeing your colleagues who both graduated from Singapore and Australia, are there any differences? And if so, what are they?
Good question. I would say not just my colleagues from Australia, but those from UK or whatnot as well. To be very honest, on day 1 of work, when we entered, we were looking to our international medical graduates for help because they were there before us. So how it works is all the locals on this cycle, but we start on May the 2nd, and then we end our 1 year on May the 2nd. So when we came in on May the 2nd, the batch of Singaporean graduates just ended on May the 1st.
Yeah.
Right? So, however, there's another cycle for international students, so that there's always overlap between old and new doctors.
So international students start
2 months prior.
2 months before.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I started on day 1, there was a group of international graduates already working and already been there for the first 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
And I looked to them for knowledge, and I looked to them for help, and I looked to them, I'm like, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? And they were the ones who were teaching me how to do things. So I honestly don't see a big difference between local grad or overseas grad, especially when it comes to the day-to-day work of a house officer.
So the quality of the doctors are consistent whether you graduate from Singapore or overseas?
I would say that medical school, at least in Singapore, Australia, UK, or those that are in the or like the schools that my colleagues come from, I would say these prepare you sufficiently to be a good and safe house officer. But I guess the big learning curve for a lot of international students would be the culture and the lingo in Singapore. Consults don't really go in English, but they're English with a mismatch of Chinese, a bit of dialect here and there, a bit of Malay thrown in, and you're speaking to allied health staff as well who speak all sorts of languages. But I guess this is just a learning curve. You get past it in the first few weeks or months.
Yeah, I think so. Essentially, if you study overseas and you plan to go back to Singapore to work, there will definitely be a transition period, and it might not be easy, but people have gotten through it.
No, yeah. And I think another thing to realize also is the working hours and life can be quite a culture shock, I guess, if you come from a country that maybe doesn't, how do I put it this way?
Prioritizes work-life balance.
And you come back home to Singapore to work and realize that actually the working hours can be quite flexible to a point whereby some days I show up at the hospital at 5:30 in the morning or 5 in the morning, and I only leave at 9 at night, even though my stipulated hours maybe end at 5 or end at 6. So that can be a culture shock.
Yeah, I think we've covered like some pretty solid points. Thanks, Nick, for coming down to Sydney, visiting me, and doing this video with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to have some friends over again. I hope you guys took something away from this video. If you did, leave it a like and subscribe. And if you have any questions for either me or Nick, you can always leave it in the comments and we'll try our best. I'll put this guy's Instagram here if you want to check him out.
And you can ask us any questions.
Yeah. See you guys in the next one.
See ya. And click the notification bell. Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
I guess that's it.
Bye-bye.
Hello there. All right.